considering I've only taken notes the entire class.
Okay. Just to summarize, the Beinoni, during times of prayer, when he says Shema, succeeds in arousing his love of Hashem, and the Yetzer Hara retreats. Thank you. Thank you very much. And is not active. His divine soul has not conquered the evil. It is overwhelmed temporarily. And therefore, when he finishes davening, he can be distracted by all the worldly things that hide. Whereas at moments of inspiration in the middle of davening, he is totally involved with his thoughts and feelings about Hashem. And at that moment, he's like a tzaddik. Good morning, Samantha. Middle of page 204. So now this raises a question. In the heart of a student, does this mean that what I'm doing isn't worth anything? Because whatever I achieve, it doesn't last. And then comes to comfort such a person with words of encouragement. This quality of love, Hamor of a Beinoni, that we've been describing in the service of the Beinoni, B'shasa Tefillah, he has this love. The love is aroused in the right side of his heart, and it dominates the left side of his heart as well, spills over. And he gets to this al yedei his beinonus through meditation of the nefesh elokis. His godly soul thinks deeply into the godliness that we see all around us, and comes to the conclusion, the same way that I see godliness being manifest in the whole of nature at this particular time of year, especially, we see the whole world coming alive with godly life. So it's logical. Logical conclusion is that I too have godly life within me, and this is the life that I want to be connected to, because every person wants to be connected to the source of his life. And the proof is that if your life is in danger, you're panicking, you fight to preserve you, to survive. And this love can become very, very strong at times of meditation, before davening. And in davening, this is where you really are. But then after davening, it goes away, you get distracted. Second Hebrew lines, page 204. V'hinei legabi medreges hatzadikim oivdei Hashem be'emes lamitei. Now, by a tzaddik, it doesn't go away. By a tzaddik, this feeling of love remains afterwards. It never goes away, because his mind is so fixed on the ideas of godliness that it doesn't get distracted. As long as it's not distracted, the feeling of love is being aroused. So we say about the tzaddik, about the avoid of a tzaddik, that this is a true love. It's enduring, Like the poet says, truth will be truth always. It's he's always holding on this level of truth. So now, compared to the love of a tzaddik, which is constant and enduring and doesn't go away. So what's with the Beinani? The Beinani has a very strong love, very similar to what the tzaddik has, only it does go away. So what are we to conclude? That it's not worth anything? Libby, you with me? Yeah. Page 204, yeah. The Gabi Madregas at Tzadikim, compared to the Tzaddik, they serve Hashem with such a degree of emes that it never wavers. It grows, but it doesn't go away. So the love of the love of Hashem that a Beinani experiences cannot be called true love compared to the tzaddik. That's rather disappointing. It's very disappointing. Says the Alter Rebbe, don't be disappointed. Don't be disappointed because your love disappears and goes away when you finish davening. Then what he's going to explain is that there are certain standards of truth. This is how I understand it. There are standards of truth that remain constant. We can't say they're relative. But on the other hand, truth has to be seen in the light of what is its own level. I remember maybe a classic example was once given to me when I first met a chassid from Chabad. And he said, imagine that you have a person lying on a table, totally out of it. A person stands over him with a knife and starts cutting him up. It looks terrible. That's what they did in the concentration camps. On the other hand, in a different setting, there's nothing terrible about it. Maybe the person is having his appendix out. He's in a hospital, he's in good care. So the same action, same activity can be seen either as something very evil or something very good. Similarly, the love that the Beinani feels, what the Alter Rebbe wants to say is that the love that the Beinani feels during his moments of prayer and inspiration is true to the level that he's on. It's not that it's unsatisfactory. He's not on the level of the tzaddik. And therefore, he can't be expected of him. In fact, if he's going to expect that level of love from himself, that won't be something true. Because then he'll lose it. And he'll feel, if I lose this, I lose everything. Like the story of Avner, who saw one fault, what he thought was a fault in his teacher's teachings, and what his teacher taught him. His teacher was a holy person, is a Ramban, Nachmanides. Who said to him that every Jewish name is to be found in the parsha that we read just before Rosh Hashanah, called Ha'azinu. He said, my name isn't in that parsha. In the same way, that's false. Everything else you taught me, I don't have to believe in. And he threw out Yiddishkeit. So a person could feel, my love is not like the love of a tzaddik, so why should I bother trying? What the Alter Rebbe comes to say is that, which by the way, his name was in the parsha, just was in a code. It was every third letter of a pasuk. In terms of the love of the Beinani is not expected to be a tzaddik, And if he would try to be on that level, it wouldn't be a true love. He would be fooling himself. And therefore, when he would discover that he didn't have this love that he aspired to, he might say, I will give up everything, which is not a correct attitude. So therefore, what the Alter Rebbe wants to say is that every level has a point of truth on that level. And that point of truth is the central point of truth in that level. And what defines it as true, he's going to say, is that it is going to agree with every other point on that level. That is the true point of what what is there. I believe I told you once before that my first teacher in Chabad, he asked me one time, well, how would you understand what truth is? And by this time I had learned enough to keep quiet and not to make my own suggestions. But wait to hear from him what he had to say. He said, truth is that which agrees with itself on every side. At every side and every angle, it will agree with itself. It will be the central point of truth on that whole level of understanding. And that's what he's going to get at here. So that in that case, since the love of the Beinoni passes after davening, it doesn't mean that it's false. It means that on the level that he's at, the love is a true service. It's what he's capable of. Or I'll give you another example. One time, the story is told, it's brought in the book called Sipur Tzadikim, Sipur Hasidim, which is published by ArtScroll, translated by Kaplan, or Ari Kaplan. The Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Ditchik, who was the Mechutan of the Alter Rebbe, their grandchildren got married together, a great tzaddik. So at 1 year after Pesach, on Pesach, he was informed from heaven that the Seder of Chaim the porter, that's to say he was a schlepper, he used to carry people's bags for them. Or he did move people's furniture and things. Was a superior Seder. So he wants to meet this person. So he sent out his Hasidim to look for him, I guess on Chol HaMoed, or maybe on Yom Tov by day. And they couldn't find. Finally, they found out where he was. They knock on the door, and his wife answers the door, and they say, "You'd like to see your husband? Your husband is Chaim? Yes, he's the porter. Yes. Can we please see him?" And she says, "No, there's no point. He's sound asleep." But the Rebbe wants to see him. Doesn't matter, he's sound asleep. You can't wake him up. Can we try? I said, yes. So they go in and they drag him out of bed and they drag him, physically carrying him to the Rebbe. And he reeks of alcohol. Comes to the Barditchever, and the Barditchever says to him, "Hello, Chaim, how was your good Yom Tov? How was your Seder?" He says, "Rebbe, what do you want from me? I don't know anything. My father never taught me anything. All I know is they told me that I am not allowed to drink vodka for 8 days. So I took whatever vodka I could find and I drank it all up. And I fell asleep. And then finally my wife was screaming at me and she woke me up and she said, 'Chaim, what's wrong with you? Everybody's making a Seder and you're just sleeping. What kind of a husband are you?' So I got up and I ate the matzahs and I drank 4 cups of wine. And I said, 'Rabbeinu Shalom, our ancestors were slaves in the land of the gypsies, and you took us out of there, and you'll take us out of this exile too.' And I drank 2 more cups of wine, and I went back to sleep." And Rabbi Levi Yitzchak said, "Thank you very much, Chaim. I very much enjoyed hearing about your Seder." And he told his Hasidim they could take him home. And the Hasidim said, "Why do Why do you pay attention to such a person like this? He says, because whatever he did with sincerity, and whatever he said was all he knew. In other words, what that story illustrates is that a person is not expected to be more than what he is. And if he's sincere in what he is, then what he is very valuable and very precious and very beloved in the eyes of Hashem. The Beinoni does not have the love of the tzaddik because his love of Hashem and moments of inspiration is tremendous, just like a tzaddik, but after davening it goes away. But that doesn't mean that it's worthless. On the contrary, that's what the Alter Rebbe comes to teach us here. Bottom of page 204. He brings a pasuk from the Proverbs, Mishli, written by Shlomo Melech, where it says, Sfas emes tiken noad. Truth is forever. Even the very edge of truth. If it's truth, even if it's a little bit, it's true. It's really true. But But something that's false won't even last a minute. Something that's false won't even last a minute. 205. At top page 205. Nonetheless, concerning the Beinoni, Nikos Aveda Tama, the love that the Beinoni has is like let's compare it to the far inferior level of the Chaim, the porter. But it's a sincere love on the level that he's at. So it's called Avodas Emes Lamite. It's absolutely true for the level that he's on. Now you're going to argue. There's going to be this, and say, well, wait a minute. Truth really is not relative. Because let's go back in history. I don't want to talk about the war that's going on now, which each side feels that it's fighting a true war and questions the truth of the other side. But during the Holocaust, the Germans felt that what they were doing was true, but there are absolutes that contradict what they were doing. They were cruel and tortured people and murdered people. So you can't say that it was true because it was true to their level. Their whole level wasn't true. Contradicted eternal truths that are given to us in the Torah. 7 laws of Noahide laws for all mankind. But here we're talking about the service of Hashem, what's considered a true service of Hashem. And here we could say, yes, there is a relative truth that because people are on different levels. So each person according to his level has the level of truth that's on that level. In the middle of the page. And therefore the Alter Rebbe says we can call the love that the Beinoni feels also to be a true love of Hashem, a true service of Hashem. Why? We say love is that truth is constant. How can you say this constant when it's constantly going away? And he comes with a very interesting conclusion. Because they can return to this level. When they meditate properly on the greatness of Hashem and they apply it to their own life and their own heart, they can recover that level or even go further. So therefore, it is constant in that it can be reawakened. Lachzor la'or, it can come back la'olam, day after day after day. Bizgabrus sa b'shas hatfila midayim v'yim, because the godly soul can overcome the obstacles to its concentration, meditation on Hashem every time. Al yedei achana ha'ra'oya, if he will do the proper preparation. L'kol nefesh kafi arkei u'medragasa, and every person has his level that's appropriate for him. Page 206, the bottom. Ki hine midas emes he midose shel Yankiv. The quality of truth, emes, is connected with Yaakov. And why do we say truth is constant? Look at the letters. The word for truth is emes. The first letter of the Aleph base is Aleph. The last letter is Tov. From Aleph to Tov, whatever point you're on, it's emes. And Mem is exactly the middle letter, like the middle point that agrees with every other point. And that's what makes up emes. That from beginning to end, it's always emes, whatever letter you're at. Whereas falsehood, the word for falsehood is sheker. So it's pointed out, every letter of emes has 2 feet. The mem has a solid base, the aleph has two feet, and the saf has 2 feet. Whereas the word for sheker, first of all, emes goes from beginning to middle to end, whereas the letters of sheker are all together. Kof, Resh, Shin are 3 letters that are consecutive. In other words, things that are false flock, like they say, birds of a feather flock together. And each of these letters stands on 1 foot. And that's what it says, that sheker doesn't have a foot to stand on, meaning it doesn't have a second foot. Sheker is falsehood. So emes stands on 2 feet, and falsehood only has 1 foot, because falsehood doesn't have a leg to stand on. However, there always has to be something true in a lie, or nobody would believe it. Like if I would tell you that the moon shines by day, you wouldn't believe me, because it doesn't shine by day. Well, sometimes it does shine by day. But if I showed you a tree and said it's made of gold, you would know it's not true. So therefore, I would have to say something that has some truth in it for you to believe that trees can be gold. That if you have enough of them, you can have a very successful lumber business. So these trees are my gold. So in terms of the Avos, the fathers of the Jewish people, Avraham stands for kindness. His service of God was through acts of kindness, and he taught people about godliness by having an open home, giving people whatever they needed. A place to stay, a place to wash up. According to certain medrashim, he had a luxurious garden with all kinds of delicious, rare fruits that grew in it. He was an Av Beis Din. He could adjudicate disputes because many people passing through were on business. He would adjudicate their cases against each other. And it says he built an eshel in the desert, a place where people could come and refresh themselves and eat and drink. And then after they ate and drank and showered and changed their clothes and washed up, he would say to them, they would say, thank you for your hospitality. And he would say, don't thank me, thank Hashem. They said, who's this Hashem? I don't believe in this. He said, you don't believe in it? So then I have to give you a bill. So a bill, he said, yeah, he would give them a bill for all the food that they ate, for their lodging, and for all the services that he provided for them. He was very, very wealthy that he could do this. And they said, why are you charging so much? He said, where else are you going to find Motel 6 in the desert? I provide everything for you. So they said, well, what was that? God, you were talking with Hashem, I should say thank you. And that way he taught people about godliness. That was his approach. Yitzchak, his approach was very different. His approach was to dig in the earth to uncover the water that's hidden beneath the surface. So there's certain approaches to how do you bring a person close to Torah and mitzvahs. The approach of Avraham was to shower him with kindness and then teach him that this is the right way. The approach of Yitzchak was to go deep, to explore deep within the person's soul and consciousness and awareness until he could discover living waters of faith and belief and goodness in the person's heart and character. That was Yitzchak's avodah, was to dig wells in the desert to provide water for weary travelers. The avodah of Yaakov combined the two, and therefore that's an avodah that's connected with beauty, because beauty is that quality that is able to make peace between opposites. Nothing's more beautiful than two hands shaking in peace and friendship and love. And Yaakov is also, therefore, and Yaakov is described in the Torah as a sincere person who spent his life in tents studying Torah, in the tents of the yeshiva of the children of Noach, Shem and Eber. So Avram is connected with kindness, Yitzchak is connected with strength, and Yaakov, the third of the three fathers, is connected with truth. And here's the pasuk that he brings. The bottom of page 204, it says, Titain emes the Yankiv. No, it's not there. Where is it? That Hashem gives truth to tzaddikim, and this is connected with Yaakov. It says, Titain emes the Yaakov, that Hashem, with part of our daily prayers, Hashem gives emes to Yaakov. Now, this is also connected by way of metaphor with the building of the Mishkan. The Mishkan was an extraordinary structure, the most extraordinary architectural structure you could imagine. The ordinary way of building a building is you take a beam and you lay it down, and you take a second beam and you lay it on top, and you take a third beam and you secure all the beams with uprights. And the structure is secure. However, the Mishkan was not built that way. The Mishkan was built with a beam like this. And at the bottom of the beam were two little feet like this. And the whole thing was 10 amas high, like a person has 10 spiritual qualities in his character, 3 aspects of the intellect and 7 emotions in the heart. And these two little feet would sit in silver sockets. Everything was exactly cut and measured. That itself is a wonder how they did that in the desert, but they did. And the beam beside it would overlap. There would be one, and it would also have 2 little feet. which would go into silver sockets. And then there was a clasp over the top to hold them all together. Now you had 20 beams, 20 of these beams. Each one was 1.5 amas, 1.5 amma. An amma, this is an amma from here to here. People are made of 4 ammas. You are 4 ammas. The length of the distance between your elbow and your fingers is 1 amma, and your body is 4 ammas. That's like 6. If this is 1.5 feet, so you're 6 feet tall. Everybody's built that way. If you're not built that way, then something's wrong. You're a little bit. You look like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Huge body and little arms. Okay. So since we had 20 of them, times 20, so the whole Mishkan was 30 amas long. Down one side was 30 amas long. So we'd have like 20 of these here. So it wasn't just big beams held together by struts at the end. The beams were standing beams. So how were they held together? How were they held together? So the answer is there were bolts. They were bolted together. How were they bolted together? There were three bolts. There was an upper bolt here, this, which would be affixed to the outside with cusps. And they would insert it like this, halfway, and they would insert it halfway from here. Now, really, I should have made this on top. They had one on top, like this, and they had one on the bottom, like this. The whole thing was covered with gold. Well, they were wooden, but they were plated on the outside with gold. And then they had one, let me erase this. And then they had one on the bottom, again, halfway and halfway. And these were held by loops that were on the outside. It was a very heavy structure, as you can imagine. Okay. And then they had a middle bolt. What was the middle bolt? We'll take a side view now. Take a side view of this beam. In the very middle of each beam, a hole was drilled. So that every one of these beams, not on the outside, here we had these bolts on the outside, but on the inside, you see, on the inside was this hole, and into this hole, they inserted one long bolt that went all the way through. And so they inserted this bolt here on the inside of all of these beams, and it went the whole distance. It wasn't half and half. It was the whole distance. So we said there's 20 beams, 1.5 each. So that's 30 amas. The middle bolt was 30 amas long. And it says the middle bolt went from one end to the other. And that's a metaphor for truth. So the middle bolt is compared to truth, because truth, like emes, goes from beginning to end. The middle bolt goes from one end to the other and unites everything. Kabbalah, according to Nachmanides, that's the pshat. That's exactly the way the Torah describes it. Nachmanides says there was a miracle because the Mishkan was made once you got to the end. So then there was another set of beams that went across the end. And that also had a middle bolt. So we had 8 of these. Middle bolt. According to the Kabbalah, to Nachmanides, this middle bolt went around and even came up the other side. So it went from end to end, from the beginning to the end. That wasn't normal. Yeah, it went all the way down and around. Like it was flexible. But that's not the pshat. That's not the simple meaning. The simple meaning is there was a middle bolt here, and there was a middle bolt here, and there was a middle bolt coming back. According to Nachmanides, it was one bolt. And that is a symbol of truth, the middle bolt that unites all the points. And what do we get out of this discussion so far is that the emes of every single level is the middle bolt of that level. And like every one of the beams is connected to that middle point, because the middle point of one beam is going to connect to the middle point of the next beam and the next beam. So the middle point of one level will also, in spiritual levels, higher and higher, the middle point of every level will connect with the middle point of every other level. So that's how a tzaddik, like the Rebbe, can speak very easily with the biggest scholar and with the youngest child. Because the truth that he's coming from relates to the truth in each and every one of them. Siddur. Here's my siddur.